It's been over 6 months since New Zealand's election and the Conservative National Party, led by Christopher Luxon, was voted in. The country is facing a number of challenges left over from the Ardern-Hipkins government, and Luxon, already taking a hit in the polls, has a mammoth task ahead of him. But as a close ally, New Zealand's prosperity is closely linked to ours, and I'm pleased to say I had the chance to speak with the Prime Minister, Christopher Luxon, a tiny bit earlier today. Prime Minister, thank you so much for joining me here on Erin. I'd like to start by essentially asking you how you came to be in this position. You weren't born into wealth or privilege. Your parents dropped out of school in their teens. What's the trick? What's the secret?
Well, firstly, Erin, great to be with you, and can I just say thank you for your patience with me since I've become Prime Minister. I've been a big admirer of your show, so it's great to be on with you today. Look, I'm just a kid who had a regular Kiwi upbringing. As I said, my parents left school at 15, 16. Awesome, amazing parents. They made sure I got all the education I needed, and I was the first in my family to go to university, and I went out in the world and went into the world of business. And then in the last 3 years, I've returned home after 16 years of living and working overseas, came home to run Air New Zealand, and then 3 years ago came to politics. So that's because I care about this great country. We have an awesome country. We think it's the best country on planet Earth. Sorry to all the Australian viewers, but I want it to realise all of its potential. I want every Kiwi kid to be able to have the same opportunities that I've had.
You've got a big job ahead of you, don't you?
Yeah, look, I mean, there's no doubt about it. The last 6 years have created some challenging circumstances for us as a new government to deal with. And certainly, our focus is just on three things. We are here to, rebuild the economy. We've got a major challenge with inflation and the cost of living, which we need to deal with. But ultimately, we have to grow our country and our economy. We need to restore law and order because crime's got out of control with a previous soft on crime approach from the previous administration, which we're fixing very quickly. And importantly, we want to deliver better government and better public services, in particular in the areas of education and healthcare.
I know you're very cautious, and I understand when it comes to talking about your predecessor, well, the one prior, Jacinda Ardern, but you've got to admit that your country went backwards under her leadership.
Well, I think the reality is, I think outcomes went backwards, and despite an 84% increase in government spending, 18,000 more public servants hired in our capital in Wellington, despite people being taxed more, borrowing went from $5 billion to $100 billion. It's quite a skill set, to be honest, to be able to spend more, hire more, borrow more, tax more, and deliver worse outcomes across the economy, across health, across education, across crime.
It's not easy, PM. You're making tough decisions that might not be particularly popular with the population right now. Recent polls 5 months in, not particularly flattering. How do you deal with that?
Yeah, look, I just say to you, there was one poll that came out in the last week or so. I don't give too much credence to that, given our own. We obviously know where we are, and what I just say to you is, again, when you do this kind of job, you can't be bounced around by pundits, commentators, and polls. What you're there to do is to focus and do your job, which is to deliver better outcomes for Kiwis. And so, that's what we're very focused on. There's no denying it's certainly been a very tough time for New Zealanders. Inflation and interest rates are very high. People want us to solve their problems for them, and that's why they voted for change, 155 days ago.
Scott Morrison has recently revealed that he struggled with anxiety, and particularly during the COVID outbreak, and he was under a lot of pressure. He was on medication, and it kind of started this conversation with a lot of different people as to whether or not a country deserves to know if their Prime Minister is struggling with their mental health and is on medication. I'd love to just ask your thoughts on that.
For me personally, I think it is important that actually people are pretty straight up about, where they are with their mental health. It's important that we don't have stigma attached to it. What we're working very hard in New Zealand is making sure we have access to mental health facilities and services. But for me personally, I think what I've discovered in the job or what I've learned is that, you first and foremost have to have a really good family unit around you. And friends that care about you because of who you are, not because of what you do, and the folk that you do life with all its ups and downs along the way.